So you can use two gateways.
You can use like multiple.
Okay.
There's no like upper limit on how much.
What would the benefits of that be? Hello everyone and welcome to the Unofficial Ignition Podcast. My name is Jonas and today I'm joined by Mathias. And Mathias, today we're going to talk about the Ignition Gateway. Mm-hmm. What it is, what you can use it for, how it's set up and all that stuff. And if you were to introduce the gateway in the Ignition system, what would you say to begin with?
So the gateway, the Ignition Gateway is sort of like the central software, the primary software service that runs on the server. Here you have like the connections to the PLCs, the connections to the database, the modules, the licenses, everything.
So it's the upper layer.
Exactly. It's more like the central part of Ignition. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So and here you have like 3 pages, like sort of like 3 fans tabs, where you can like configure. You have the homepage tab where that's the main screen of the Ignition Gateway, and then you have the status page where you can see the state of the whole gateway. It's here the different logs from your system is located and written out, so you can investigate if you have some errors or something's not working properly. You can see how much CPU usage you have and all that stuff about the server and the
General
gateway.
Information about
exactly.
everything.
And then you have the config page where you can configure everything regarding the overall setup.
So right when you install Ignition, the gateway is an automatic part of that, or how does that work?
Yeah. So you install the Ignition Gateway, including all the modules that you want. You can install all the modules, or you can just simply install the specific modules you need. Exactly. Right. And then through the gateway config page, which is just a web server, so you access it through your browser. Mm-hmm. Here you can like activate your licenses, do all the setup you need with users and roles and like different database connections, projects, everything you need to do. So all the setup part.
What's the first thing you set up? Is it the first thing you dabble in when you install Ignition, what's the first thing that the gateway needs before it can actually function?
So right after the installment of Ignition of the Ignition Gateway, then you will need to access the gateway through the web page. You have to go through a commissioning sort of service of some commissioning steps. Right. Where like they are trying to introduce you. You can set up a device. You can
a setup process.
Exactly, a setup process where you can set up a device. You can activate your licenses. You can set up a database connections. Like sort of these like very primary things you need to do in the gateway. So when you have installed the Ignition Gateway service, then what you usually do first is that you set up a device. That's one of the main purpose of the Ignition Gateway is to like connect to a device and gather some data through that. So you set up a device and you can set up a project. You can set up a database connection. So you can actually log some historical data. You can set up the historian. Different setup.
Different modules.
Exactly.
Under the.
Yeah.
And how does vision and perspective tie into all this? Is that part of the gateway too, or is that another layer?
Yeah, so you have like the config page on the gateway, where you can do all this overall setup as we just talked about, and then you have the designer as well. So the designer is more used for like the UI, so the perspective, the vision setup, where you can set up all the things that the user actually interacts with. But you can also set up. It's also in the designer where you set up the tags. So here you set up the devices on the configuration page on the Ignition Gateway in the web browser, and then you use the designer to set up the different tags, which is then pointing at this specific device that you want to access.
Okay.
So it's sort of like you have to set up the configuration page first, and then you dive into the different like sections in the designer where you need to do some more like specific setup.
Right. And then when you've set up your gateway and everything is all dandy, is that all you need? Do you only need one gateway at a time, or?
It depends. It depends on your setup. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish.
So you can use 2 gateways?
You can use like multiple.
Okay.
There's no like upper limit on how much.
What would the benefits of that be?
So the benefit, it depends on your architecture, what you're trying to accomplish. So if you have like multiple sites at different like geological locations, then it can make sense to have each location have its own gateway, so that you can run everything locally.
Right.
But then you can like connect all these sites, all these gateways to each other, and then you can also do it like from a central gateway at some central location. You say, okay, this is where like the operators are sitting normally, and then they can like control each site. But you can also just use one gateway and then connect everything out to the different locations. But if usually companies have like a closed network to like, so it's not directly connected to the internet. Right. So there it makes sense that you have your own like wiring and all that. So that makes sense. You have the gateway locally under your own roof, so to speak.
Behind the air gap.
Exactly.
Okay, for security reasons, I guess.
Yeah, usually.
Okay. And what else do you use a gateway for? I can ask it another way. If you pick out the gateway, does everything fall apart?
Yeah, that's sort of like, that is ignition.
The gateway is ignition. Right?
Exactly. You don't have anything if you don't have the gateway. Everything is run through the gateway. But you can like select the different modules that you want to be using. So if you have a setup where you say, okay, we have a gateway, because we have so many devices, we have a gateway only used to connect to the devices, and here you configure on this gateway you will then launch the designer, configure the tags you need for all the devices, and then that is basically it. If you have some historian as well, then you can set up the tag historian there as well and connect it to a database. So the only thing that gateway will do is pull all the devices, gather the information, save it to the database, and then you can use another gateway for like the UI, the perspective, the vision. It can like service those like the front end, so to speak.
Right.
So you have a back end and a front end gateway, and then you can connect these two. So the front end will simply just use a remote tag provider and connect to the back end gateways tags, and then but it doesn't have to like use like memory or anything like processor power to ask all the devices for data. The back end gateway will do that. So then you can like divide and conquer your system, so it gets more efficient. And then in front of the front gateway, you can actually place a load balancer, which then, if you have like multiple operators launching the perspective, the vision module, or the different clients, either be perspective or vision, then you can simply just say, okay, then it will like balance which gateway to use. So it's only makes sense if you have like multiple gateways. So in the front end, you have like multiple. You have one backend gateway connecting to all the devices, and then you have like maybe 2 or 3 front end gateways, depending on your setup and how many users you have in the front end. Right. And then you have a load balancer, which will then dictate which gateway the user logging into the vision of the perspective module or perspective client wants to.
So it distributes the work.
Exactly. In order to like have a more like balanced and good performing system. Yeah.
Cool. I think that's it for this week, Mathias. Thank you for joining me, and
thank you.
See you next week.
See you.